Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voice Like a Lion podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pemberton, and today we have someone who is actually genuinely helping the world. And what I mean by that is that this is Joe, this is my buddy Joe. He, through one of his companies that he's now sold, so that's really interesting, is he was able to plant over 400,000 trees. But also, even more interesting than that is he has lived in Thailand, Colombia, and Brazil, and I'm sure at least 17 other countries since then. So, Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, Stephen. Good to join you.
I'm excited to have you here, and for a few different reasons. I just think that you're such an interesting character. You've done so many amazing things. But my first question, you've lived in multiple different countries. Which one is your favorite and why?
Oh man, Brazil. Yeah, Brazil's top. So I was been living there the last 3 years, and we just moved out Friday. So my fiance and I, we're going to travel for a couple months, and then we're moving to the U.S. So I'm coming back to the
Wow.
homeland after 10 years away.
Wow. Why'd you decide to do that?
Just to start a family, and she really loved it here, and it's a rural town in Illinois with 1,000 people. So yeah, we just wanted to start a family. Thought this would be the best place, and we were living down in the Florianopolis, down the beach in Brazil. It's a great spot, but we just like, let's try something new. Let's head up north, new adventure.
That's cool. That's part of my roots. I'm come from Chattanooga, Tennessee. So in Chattanooga, Tennessee, I my grandmother owned 33 acres, and I used to
Oh,
spend about a
nice.
couple months every single summer up there on her farm. So being up on the farm, it's funny because I 99% of the time I lived in the city, but I used to always see myself as a country boy. So being out there in the rural, there's just something about it. Like being for me, the two places I feel the most alive is one on the beach, and then two is in the country with where there's just peace. There's peace and quiet, and there's this serenity. And I think that that's really cool. I mean, even where we're at in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there's so much flat, open land that we're just kind of still out in the middle of nowhere to a certain degree. So we're able to I just found, especially with me, I've been married for 11 years. Better get that right, or my wife will throw me out this window. But been married 11 years. We have a 10-year-old son, and being in a place where you just feel like you can be right. You can sit there and have your family. You can grow your family, and it doesn't feel
That's what
super
it
high
is.
stress. And I think
Yeah,
that's what it sounds like that you guys are getting into.
Yeah, peace, tranquility, family close, and we're living in, like I said, it's called Florianopolis. It's kind of it's a tourist area too, so you get a lot of movement back and forth, and we thought it was really cool. My fiance loved it here, up in Illinois, rural Illinois, and just everybody knows everybody, and there's farmland here, and since it's so big and wide open, we can create our own dream, which is just have a complex of all these things that inspire us around the world, like have like a music studio, have a gym, have a greenhouse with like tropical plants from around the world. So like year long, we have this like, tropical feeling in there, and close to Chicago. So we can still travel whenever we want. So yeah, I mean, that was the move there. But, every country, the more I travel, the more I realize every country has really great things. There's pluses and minuses to every spot. And the more places I've been, the more I realize there's no perfect spot. So, it's just a matter of deciding what to prioritize and then choosing the location based on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that I think is interesting is I know you've had business success, but one of the things you and I were also talking about through LinkedIn was you just experiencing more of the arts. You're stepping more fully into the arts. So what has that been like for you? How's that experience been?
Yeah, it's been really good. It started because, yeah, a few years ago I was burnt out. So I had two different businesses, and always kind of having a bunch of projects. And I was like, okay, I was living in Colombia. I was like, okay, I'm going to sell pretty much all my business assets. I kept one app to keep an income going, and a SaaS app that I have. And then I said, okay, what do I want to do next? I was like, I want to take a little bit of a break, sabbatical, and then just start being creative and see what happens. So I started drawing, I started making music. I don't have anything published. It's more of just like making beats and having fun and
Yeah.
inviting people to the studio and goofing around. But yeah, and I bought an iPad. I started drawing, and like I was like, what'd be really cool is to make cartoons. So I'm kind of on the path there. So it's kind of a way to like any type of ideas I have creatively, I can just put them on like drawing or music, and it's become a really kind of an active meditative
Hmm.
practice. So yeah, that's kind of been doing that on the side, but after taking like probably a year to like very part-time on business, kind of like 4-hour work week style, like things were automated. I kind of got the urge again, like, oh, I really like building and I like coding a lot. So that's why I was like, okay, so I started another company and pulled that app and did some other things with it to where it's like, okay, I mostly focus on coding and then, growing business as well. Because of course the business helps like fund the music studio because I realize it gets expensive when you start getting into that. So yeah, always just trying to create stuff and really trying to be more like pure creative stuff as well. So just having fun and see where it goes. And once something sticks, then I kind of like identify like, okay, I really vibe with this. And then that's when I decide to like put priority on a project or focus and go hard on it.
So that actually leads me in an interesting direction. What I mean by that is my business partner and I, we have a client that we assist. We have a brand that we've helped them scale up. And one of the co-founders is an amazing designer, has worked with Beyonce and Madonna and all these big name people, but she doesn't know how to work on the business, and she's kind of become the bottleneck. So for you being someone who loves coding, what has that been like? Because I mean, you've obviously been able to grow some decent sized companies, been able to exit. That means that you have good business sense, good business structure. So how do you focus on what you love and still be able to do the things maybe you don't love as much as far as some of the business aspects?
Well, like trying to like building a team and hiring out helps a lot, which I had admittedly have never really been too strong on that. Like it gets to the point where it's like, okay, I'm so like overwhelmed, like I have to hire someone for this area. So that's one of the things that I still like identify as like, as when I do like a review of my own self is like, okay, what can I improve on? That's one thing. But yeah, just with hiring has helped. And then for me, like just finding whatever type of project I can do to focus on what I like. So you
Mm.
mentioned the company we planted 400,000 trees. It's called Tree Tribe. So that was like spawned from my passion of I really love nature. I love being in nature, and I just have always felt so much overwhelming gratitude. Like, how can I
Yep.
give back to the earth? And so as I was getting in like an entrepreneurial mindset, I was like, okay, I want to start a company that like purpose is to give back to the earth. So we planted trees on every sale, and then we also used eco-friendly materials like bamboo or organic cotton and shirts and stuff. And so like with that business, I really liked kind of like the idea of giving back and the mission, but I didn't really honestly enjoy a lot of the e-commerce aspects. So um, creating products was fun sometimes, but all other times it felt like a drag because especially if
Hmm.
you create something and then it just turns out to be a dud and you're like, oh man. So there's a whole separate skill in just like really identifying the market and researching to find what type of products are going to resonate with people. So yeah, aside from that, and then like managing marketing campaigns and like selling products and dealing with international shipments. We had our suppliers were based in various countries: USA, Thailand, China. I think those were the three primary areas. So when you're dealing with different logistics, and product stock and working with third parties, basically to sum all that up, I wasn't really, it started to become job like. And so that's why I worked on exiting from the business, which it still runs. And my co-founder is still running that. And I just sold my shares to, another partner. So that like the whole thing there was like, okay, what, and I had this other business to where I was as a Shopify development optimization agency. We did apps. So a couple of things there, like to where it's like, okay, I was managing certain things. I was doing some work with clients and then I was doing coding and collecting all of the tasks that I do on a weekly basis. I was like, what do I like? It's like, man, I just love putting on the headphones, getting some techno music going and diving into some code, and having ideas and launching features and like having those features go live and then users be stoked about them and be like, dude, this is great. Or a person requesting a feature and then building that and then saying, oh, this saved me 10 hours a month on my tasks and stuff. So because we do automation
Hmm.
tasks for our apps. So it was kind of that combination of to where it's like, okay, I'm overwhelmed with time. I try to automate stuff. I like coding based off all the other tasks. So then I literally just got rid of everything else. My method was I spent 6 months or maybe longer really dialing in the businesses to a point to where they're, clearly analytics, sellable, like just a nice asset to pass off. So my method was, yeah, just identifying first what I really like to do, and then um, focusing on that. And then, luckily I was already monetizing that with the app. If I wasn't monetizing, for example, like drawing, making cartoons, I can't just choose to do that right now because I don't have like that channel business wise monetized. But yeah, just an analysis of all tasks, and then cutting out what I don't like, and then dramatically for me, and then focusing on what I do like.
That is very, I love that for a couple different reasons. Is one, I have seen so many different founders. I mean, even for myself, I've founded two different e-commerce stores. Both of them went over $1 million a year in the first 12 months separately. So what I found for our superpower, and by our, I mean me and my wife did it. My wife did a lot of the first one, and I just kind of take credit because I was there on the back end. But the second one, I was all there. Like I was actually there for all of that one. But what's cool is what I realized very quickly, especially with the second one, is we had zero. We were at zero. And then we went from zero to $5,000 in net profit in the first month. And I went, okay, we have something for real.
Nice.
And then that was in September of 2020. And then by the end of 2020, we go, oh shoot, and we are making about $10,000 a month. And we go, okay, this is now we really do got something. Then we scaled it up to revenue wise within 6 months, we were doing $100,000 a month. And the only way we got there was we hired. we hired out for everything we hated, because in the beginning it was me and my wife doing everything. She was the one doing all the product research. She was finding all the suppliers. She was doing all of that. And then I did all of figuring out the marketing. I figured out all of the basically the sales channel we were going to be on, the best strategy for that sales channel. And I did all the customer service. So in the beginning, it wasn't too bad, right? So we would split time. We both do some product research. But then once we scaled up to where we were doing, 20, 30 orders a day, and especially once we got to 200 orders a day, I was doing a ton of customer service. And we were very similar to you, where in the beginning, it's like, oh, this isn't bad. And then all of a
Yeah,
sudden it got to where it's
all
like, I'm
good.
doing 10 hours of just customer service. And I went, this sucks. It's like, it's like, there's either people super excited, or it's just the normal questions. Hey, what size is this? It's like, it says large right on the listing. It's like, hey,
Classic.
what kind of material is this? It's like, it's literally the second bullet point in the description. It's this kind of material. And eventually what we did is we realized that our biggest chokehold was the customer service, because I couldn't work on the business. I was just too stuck in the business. So we hired two customer service reps that freed up a ton of our time. We were able to do more product research. And then we hired someone to do the product research and just find the right items. Then we put them in there, and then we had a manager that managed the team. So for us, is we just got to check in. It's like, okay, how's everything going? We got to focus on the marketing channels and just make sure that that was working really well. And it's like, okay, this is working well. What other strategies can we implement? What other sales channels can we go down? How can we leverage our skill sets there instead of just being stuck in the little tasks? But one of the pieces of advice that you gave that I love is the fact of, if you're going to start a company, just focus on something you actually love. I think that that's a different thing than what are you passionate about? Because there's times, I've been married for almost 12 years. There's times I'm passionate for my wife. And there's other times I can't stand my wife. Now, and I think that that's something that people get wrong, is like, you're going to start a business because you're passionate. Let's say you're passionate about coding in the beginning. But then what happens if you get 20 projects and it's hard all of a sudden? If you don't love it, you're passionate in the moment, but you don't have a deep love, a gratitude for being able to do that thing, that's what's going to carry you through the times where you're trying to figure it all out. So
Yeah, for sure.
I love that you put it that way, that it's about what you love.
Yeah, no, it helps a lot. It helps carry you through those like grinder sessions too, when you're like, oh man, I really got to get this going, or just it helps like fuel that the fire. I think a little bit easier.
Absolutely. I mean, even for me, when it comes to business as a whole, because for me, I've shifted away, similar to you in a certain regard, where I've shifted away from my own e-commerce stores. Looking to get back into that though. So this will be the year that we most likely, me and my co-founder, will end up launching something, either launching or buying one. And but for the past couple of years, it's just been a focus on helping other brands, and that's just come with its own set of challenges that I never could have imagined. But it's been fascinating to just be able to work with people, right? And I mean, especially being able to see how much people care for their business, and how, like, what is their vision for this thing? What are they grateful for in this? What is driving them? And being able to understand, how can I really assist them? but it's also just been a fun experiment for me because there's times it's like, man, I hate this thing. I just want to go back to something else. And then there's been times where I go, you know what? Yes, it's hard. And there's been times it's been really hard. And I go, but I'm here because I love it. And I know that this is what I want to do. That this is what I've sat down years ago and say, this is the vision for my life. But the thing is, you can't always map out the good, the bad, and the ugly. But you just gotta, if you have an end, not even an end destination, but it's like, what do you want to do? And that's something that I wish more people understood. Is more people think that they only can do what they want to do when they have the money to do it. But you actually have a choice right now. You can choose what you want to do right now. You can do that today.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think, yeah. To go along with what you said, I think it's important for people, especially us, people that are working like hard, starting businesses, getting really stuck to where you have an infinite task list. I think it's really good to where we like just schedule time just to sit and think. So maybe it's even if it's just like 1 or 2 hours every Thursday night. It's like, okay,
Yep.
I'm just gonna sit in silence and think about what I want to do, where I'm at with the business, business life, whatever the goals are. I found that like for me, sometimes I can just get so caught up in just task driven
Mm-hmm.
actions, like boom, 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 that I forget to just sit and think and like step away for a minute and what's the big picture there. And like maybe months go by, and then I just sit there. One day I just sit and think for a little bit. I'm like, oh yeah, it's all clear, and I know exactly what I need to do, and I know where like my weak points are, and I know where I need to like shift my time.
That's something that I actually heard on a podcast earlier today, where there's so often that people will start a business and then they don't realize if it can scale or not. They don't look at their actual addressable market. It's like, is there a big enough addressable market for this thing to actually grow? They just go, oh, this is cool. Let me just do this. And I think even to your point, for me personally, is I have Mondays. Mondays is my time because it's right at the beginning of the week. I like to sit there for a couple hours and I plan out what my week looks like and basically what's already on my schedule. And then I'll plan out what this week looks like, and then I start planning next week. And at the same time, as I go, okay, am I still in alignment with what I wanted this to be? Because as you're growing a company, if you're not careful, you can grow something to where you look up and this thing's unrecognizable. It's like Frankenstein's monster because you just kind of threw it all together. That way you can make money and it's just there and you go, man, this thing is ugly and I hate this thing. What happened to it? So I think it's great. That piece of advice is to just take a little bit of time, look up, look a little bit further down the road.
Yeah, I like that you plan your week and then the week in advance. It's an interesting concept because interesting for me because I've never like I don't think I've ever done that. I mean, of course I have like my goals like okay like this quarter, or year especially a lot of times quarterly or and monthly focus.
Yep.
And I'll be like, okay, what do I want to do this week? And sometimes I'll write down the key points. I've never been like, okay, what do I want to do next week? I think that's an interesting experiment to try.
Yeah.
Um,
So
to
normally what I do, at least for me, is it's basically if people have time booked on my calendar, I just make sure it's all there. And then I start thinking ahead. So it's like, okay, because I do this, I wouldn't say I do this all the time, but I did this experiment. I took some time towards the end of 2024 and I just got silent where I went and I sat down and I said, what do I want to accomplish in 2025? And then, so I had these two big goals, these big, hairy, audacious goals that I want to hit. And then I was like, okay, let's work backward from that. Let's reverse engineer this. And what does Q1 look like? What does Q2, Q3, Q4? And so basically, when I look at my weeks, is I have them structured in a way to hit that Q1 goal. And what I mean by that is I have, if my wife hates my Google Calendar, she's connected to it and she absolutely hates it because it's all color coordinated and stuff.
oh,
But I have it in a sense where I can just look at it and know, okay, I've got a meeting with Joe in 30 minutes. Okay, I've got it now. It's just free time. So what's happening in my free time? Because I'm one of those people where if I don't quote unquote have something to do, I have nothing to do, and I'll just go sit on the couch and it's like, oh shoot, I should have done this. So I actually will have this. I call it a maker block. Inside of the maker block, I just have, okay, we're going to do this many outreach. We're going to talk to this many people right now. We're going to work on this lead magnet. We're going to work on the email automation system. So now I know it's like, oh, I'm working on this. Or it's like, hey, I'm going to go talk to my business partner in this block. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. And it just keeps me on track because if I don't, then I'm going to start scrolling Facebook Marketplace or I'm going to be on Instagram or something. I just have a lot of extra time laying around. So I want to be able to maximize the most that I can.
I like that. Yeah, yeah. It's good to experiment with systems, and we all eventually find our own
Yeah,
system
whatever works. I think it
to get
just matters
into.
to find what works for you. And I don't think there's a cut and dry, this is the best way to do it. I mean, there's people I know that use similar systems to me, but they're working 14, 16 hours. And I'm just like, I've done that in the past. And to me, that's not my best. I just
No.
know that my capacity would my capacity for work be able to do that? Yeah. I mean, I did that for 5.5 years in a warehouse job, basically, where I was working 14 to 16 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. So can I do it? Yes. Did I like doing that? Absolutely not. I hated it. So why would I do that again just because I want to? If I'm building a business, I want it to be my way. So yes, there's business principles, there's ways that you do things, and I want it to be something that I enjoy doing.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Hey, can I ask you a question? Because you were mentioning
Absolutely.
about you're thinking about, okay, maybe I'm going to start
For sure.
enter into another e-commerce
Yeah.
venture. You said so with you having these two e-commerce. You said you had two
Yep.
e-commerce stores
Two.
that you
Yeah.
scaled. You started and scaled.
Yep.
So with that experience behind you, what do you like? What do you think is better for to either start a new one or buy into one? And like, what
Oh.
do you think you'd like better? Because like just going through because I started an
Yeah.
e-commerce business, so I know the whole
Yep.
the whole start from zero thing. So I'm interested to see what you're thinking on both of those sides.
Yeah. Great question. First time somebody has asked a question in the middle of the podcast. I like this. So
I'm really curious, man. It's
So this is actually a great conversation. Me and my business partner have been having this conversation for literally months. And then one of his connections had a brand that he grew from zero to about $5-6 million a year. Then he exited it last year, so in 2023. So not 24, but in 23. And we've been talking to him because now he's been a consultant and he wants to get back into a startup. So we've been talking to him. He knows he had a lot of venture backing, so he has this network of investors. So for us, we've been thinking, okay, if we want to build one, what would that look like? If we want to buy one, what would that look like? So what we figured out is, for me, that's where I really want to be. I want to be back in a brand, back in an e-com store, but there also is a criteria for each one of us. And what does that look like? If you were running a store, what kind of product, basically what kind of profit margins would you want? What's your average order value? I think that for me, I'm not in love with any product category. So it's like, okay, what would your total addressable market look like? What kind of tech stack would you want to have? What, how much inquiries are you getting every day? Is it something that people are easily recognizable? How easy would it be to grow a social media presence? Just what are these different criteria? Because then it dictates how you either build or how you buy. Because either way, it's a decently long runway. If we even starting today, if I wanted to build one and I had these criteria of this is what my product, this is the kind of quality I want, this is the kind of average order value I want, the kind of profitability I want, how big I want my team to, or how many moving pieces I think I would need for this. Then it's like, okay, we're going to go find the supplier, go get some samples. We're going to figure out what this is. And that's still going to take a few months to do that. Same thing with buying one. There's brands for sale right now, but when you look at a brand, this has always been my interpretation, and everyone has their own interpretation on it. And I would love to even hear your side of this too. Is when I look at somebody selling a brand, I ask myself immediately is, why are you selling it? So my question is, it's like, if you're telling me that, oh man, everything's great and it's really profitable and it's doing great, it's like, why are you selling it? And because I mean, if this thing's just spitting off cash flow, you're not going to sell it. Even if you don't want to be in it, you're just going to hire a CEO and you're just going to exit without exiting. So if you are actively just saying, you know what, I actually just want a big influx of cash, I just want to be out of the industry, I'm burnt out on it and I want out. Okay, maybe it is actually a good business and there's just a couple levers you didn't know how to pull that maybe I do know how to pull that can enable growth, that can help me scale it, that can help me stay profitable without burning myself out. It's like, okay, that's an interesting business. But it takes so much due diligence, where I've just heard horror stories. I had another gentleman who was on this podcast and he talked about it, where he had a buddy come to him, had a company that was doing $40,000 a month, and had an e-commerce brand. And the guy said, dude, I'm just burnt out. I really want out of this. Would you be up to buy it? And the guy had already exited 4 different businesses. So he had the bankroll. And he said, well, tell me about it. It's like, well, Facebook marketing is our main channel. We do XYZ amount of sales. This is what it looks like. He went and looked at the P&Ls and he just like, oh yeah, it all looks good. Buys it. The day he buys it, he realizes that their ad account has been shut down for a week. And the reason why it's shut down is because now it's in the health and wellness category and it's some like medical device. and they can't advertise on their biggest channel, their only sales channel. And so now he's just like, I bought a business for a multiple that's actually at zero. And he had to figure out a way to turn that thing around. And he did. He figured out a way to turn it back around, and he got it back to 30, 40,000. He exited it again. He sold it and he got his money out of it. And I go, that's smart.
Wow,
That's cool. And he told me
yeah.
what that looked like and how he did that. But also, for me, is it's figuring out what criteria you want will drive how you build. And then it's also going to drive what you look for. But I think for me, I would rather build something over buy something because if I'm going to build something right now, just being transparent, no one else knows this actually, besides my wife. If I'm going to build something right now, I want it to be something where I can grow it as big as I want it to grow. And that means if I want to take it from 0 to 1 million again, cool. If I want to go from 0 to 100 million, because I know people who do that and they're doing that yearly in their company, cool. I want to be able to do that too. There's a lot of people where they just want to build the lifestyle brand, and that's fine. You want to go from 0 to 1 million to 3 million, $5 million a year. You're getting paid pretty well off of it. And that's just where you want to cap it. That's fine. But the same thing I told my co-founder is or potential co-founder is I want to build something where the only cap we place on is the cap we put on it. So it has the foundation to scale however big we want it to go. And it has the team in place. It has the tech stack in place where if we uncap it, it can grow as big as we want it to. So for me, that means that acquiring it probably wouldn't be the best route for that. Because I think if it's short term, me and my other co-founders, we come in, we build something that is lifestyle, pays us pretty well. We exit that down the road. They get to go live on the beach, whatever, whatever they want to do, cool. But that's not my vision. That's not my long-term goal. So if it's something short-term, buying one makes more sense. You already have it running. You already have some systems in place, already have a team. You can just optimize those things and cool. But if it's something where you want to grow something and you know exactly how this house was built and how it's running, and I'm kind of the neat freak with that. I mean, I'm sure to a certain degree when you're doing coding, you too. It's like if somebody hands you an app and says, hey, this works, I just want it to be green instead of red, and you go in there and then all the code is horrible, you're just like, what happened? Like, who built this thing? And that's similar to me is I just don't want to get into something. And even if I do as much due diligence as possible, until you're actually driving the car, you don't realize that they just like glued the radiator on, and then you get halfway down the road and the radiator blows off and you go, oh shoot, I wish I would have known that. So yeah. I think that's my thought process, as deep as I wouldn't even say as deep as I could possibly go, but that is where my mindset is when it comes to acquiring over starting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, depending on where you're going, if you're looking for that big long-term upside kind of thing, I think it makes sense probably to I guess it would just be a little harder to identify those like diamonds that you're going to be like, okay, this business for sale that has so much untapped potential. Yeah, cool. Yeah, just really interesting because you're in the position to do that now. So it's like, do you buy or because I've been considering buying a business this year just to kind of add to the network, a little bit. So something that's not a Shopify app, which is my main business is Shopify apps. So maybe like whether it's like a blog in the area or a different kind of app, or even something that could like kind of cross promote, So with that, I'm like, because I always have ideas. I'm like, oh, dude, I built something. Like, it would be really cool just to buy something and skip that stage of like getting traction and like and just have it and using my own network and experience running my other businesses to be like, okay, I can see how I can like just scale this and like boom, just get right in there.
So there's a company, I'm gonna look them up, but I saw this story. So there's a popcorn company called Lesser Evil. Let's see, yearly revenue. So the story on it is the owner. Oh, that's crazy. But the owner of it, what he did, he worked on Wall Street. He ended up burning out on Wall Street. He had someone that he knew owned this popcorn brand, and they were pretty much at the verge of bankruptcy. And he came in. They had a lot of assets, so he bought them for $250,000. And that wasn't that long ago. Let's see. In 2011, he bought it. So I mean, 13 years ago, he takes it from where he bought the company for $250,000 in 2011. It made last year $165 million. So I think it's crazy. And I went, oh man, that's crazy. And when I was reading that, I'm like, dang, that's crazy. Popcorn. So just for some popcorn, I'm not sponsored, but if for some reason someone from Lesser Evil hears this, Lesser Evil is really good. If you get the one that's the butter flavor one, really good. And
Nice.
so if you ever want to try some good popcorn that's actually decent for you, that one, especially butter flavor, tastes like
Okay,
movie
lesser
theater
evil.
popcorn, which is crazy. But yeah, so I think that there would just have to be, and the more that I've grown in my business acumen, just business knowledge overall, is there would have to be something that you could leverage more than just, okay, well they have $100,000 worth of products. It's like, okay, but is it theirs? Do they have a trademark on it? Is it unique? Is it something that is serving an industry in a unique way? And is it hard to duplicate? Because if the answer is no, then why would I spend $100,000 to buy it? I could just you right now you just have $100,000 of dead inventory. I could just start my own, have less inventory to start out with, and do the same exact thing as you. So I think it's being able to think about growth, but also think about protecting the downside on that. And and also is like, is it tech enabled? Do they have, like, even for something you do they have an app that was built out that is theirs? If they have something that is tech, that's a software base on the back end, that's harder to duplicate. And since now it's got things that are harder to duplicate, if I can buy it and I can just add my own flavor to it on how to do marketing, how to do some of the positioning and those things, then it's going to be like this guy. You can scale it easier. You're just going to have to learn how to deploy and grow your assets. But I think again is it would just have to be the right opportunity. And this was a question that I posed, and I would even pose this to you too, is how fast do you want to go? Because if you want to go fast, it's, in my opinion, to be faster to start something. Because if you're looking kind of like me, if I'm looking for the diamond in the rough that somebody just hasn't been able to clean up yet, or the needle in the haystack, how long will it take me to figure that out? How long will it take me to actually find that thing? And then I've still got to go do all my digging and make sure that it's good. And then if it is good, then I buy it. If it's not, then I just wasted 3-4 months on A, finding it, B, is vetting this thing, when I could have just started it and started building something that I wanted to see.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's
That's
all
my two
about
cents.
setting up those moats, ain't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating conversation, and I think it's something that I've never heard before. I hope somebody hears that and they go, oh well, that helped save me some time. Especially in it, I just think, especially now, if you want to buy an e-commerce brand, it's easy to go buy an Amazon brand. There's so many different Amazon stores. There's like a million different Amazon stores that open up every week or something crazy. And even with that being true, I mean, I had one and it went to a million. That was the very first one. And Amazon is just a sketchy place. It's a great additional sales channel, but I would never use it as the only sales channel, just because you don't control it. Like, you could say the same thing about a Shopify store or anything else. Now, I mean, if you did a headless one and you went and built it on your own, you had your own code, your own everything, then yes, now that's your own website and they can't take that from you. So to a certain degree, is Shopify similar because they're a platform? Yes and no. With Amazon, if they make a policy change, you're just done. Or that happened during COVID, where they took it from where you could sell unlimited amounts to where you could only sell 200 units a day. So now, if you were doing $20 million a year, you're selling way more than 200 units.
Mm.
So now you just lost a huge majority of your business for nothing that you could foresee. So for me, is I just think just being able to, again, how big can you grow it is one thing, but how can you protect the backside of it? If it's 100% built on Amazon and it has nothing else, there's not as many levers to pull. You have PPC, you have how good your descriptions are, and that's really about it. You have brand security, and then you have to figure out how to build your brand through social media and everything else. But if you start with your own website and then add that as rocket fuel later, makes your life way easier.
Yeah, yeah, 100% agree. It's good to have your home base. And yeah, with any third party, yeah, Amazon especially, I mean, that can be quite risky. Yeah, I've sold on Amazon in the past too, and it's like sometimes it's like it's really frustrating, So it's like having like just like your friend that bought that business that the with the Facebook marketing, like everything was just one channel, and then if that channel something happens, then that destroys it. So I think that's a good argument for diversifying,
Yeah.
channels, marketplace, things like that.
Yep. And even on that note, and I know we're coming to towards the end of our time, but even on that note, is if you are a founder listening to this and you're doing about $30,000 a month, and you go, "That's right, I need to diversify." Don't diversify too quick either. I mean, if you have something, if you are on Shopify and you're making 30 grand a month, I don't know if you necessarily need to step in Amazon too, because you really haven't figured out how to even actually sell that thing at scale yet. You haven't. And again, this is one of those things I've seen is these smaller founders think that they've just capped out at $1 million a year. And it's like, there's people I know that are doing $100 million a year and they're not even close to capping out with some of these bigger brands. There's brands that are doing $1 billion and they're not there yet. Like their total addressable market is just huge. So then you just haven't figured out what levers to pull to generate those things. But I do think once you get pretty good at being able to convert customers in one vein, then you do need to start diversifying into other channels, because then it's just going to make your life easier. Because what happens if Facebook changes the game and that's your only channel? You are out of business. What happens if Amazon changes the game and that's your only channel? You're out of business. Same thing with any of these. But if you're going to leverage all of those, then finding a way to diversify how your approach is really important. But yeah, Joe, I appreciate you so much for being here and listen to me ramble for the last few minutes on buying versus not buying one.
Well, you got a lot of experience. I mean, and that's valid, because it's as like, just going through the journey of entrepreneurship for me, which started probably 14 years ago or so.
Wow.
It's impossible to see what's on the other side until you've actually been in it. So it's like just hearing like someone's take on it that's been through the trenches. I think that's valuable.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that you didn't mind me rambling on. And it's also just what I've seen from brands that are bigger is even brands that are looking to sell, they're selling for a reason. Even if they're selling for $96 million, let's say there's one that I know in particular that did that. And then they ended up only selling a portion of the company for about 46 million. Is they sold because they were just burnt out in that moment. And then they look back and say, well, I was burnt out. I wish I hadn't have sold it because I would have been able to do X, Y, Z. But if you find that right opportunity, then go in, and that's a great way to look at it. Is like, but you have to figure out who the founder is and what do they play in the acquisitions model as well. Because if they're the face of the brand and then you buy it and then they take their face off the brand and you're not keeping them on, then you're going to have a harder time. You got to figure out how to do the marketing around that. So there's a lot of different things with it. But yeah, I mean, it's just at the end of the day, business is a lot simpler than people give it credit for, but it just takes a lot longer than what people believe, because it happens in your head first. Like you have a dream for something first and you say, oh, I want to make this happen. You start building the thing and you realize it's a little bit harder than you expected. Maybe you didn't have the skills you needed for that. You expected to have that amount of success in a year, and now it's taking you 3 to get there. And you go, oh shoot, this took a lot longer. So it's just being able, again, just asking yourself the question is how fast do you want to go? And what is the vehicle you're going to take to get there? Could I take the vehicle of buying one? Yeah. I mean, I just told you an example of lesser evil going, but that's also the thing is it took 13 years for them to become, it actually took them 12 years to become a 9-figure brand. So if 9 figures is what you wanted to do, are you willing to spend a decade on doing that?
Yeah.
It takes time. No
way around it. You gotta just put in that time. Sometimes you get lucky, but definitely time to get up and get leveling up.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Joe, thank you so much again for hanging out with us here. I appreciate you once more for letting me ramble on. I hope you had a good time today. And then for everyone listening,
it's great.
Thank you so much.
Great to meet you, man.
Yeah, like for sure.
Conversation, just run into, oh, hey, Steve, what's up? Okay, well, what are you up to?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to be. That's why I thought it was cool. I really enjoyed that you asked the question instead of it just me being like, blah, 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 blah. Here's a question. And then just like, here's my answer, blah, blah, blah. Here's another question. No, that's awesome, man. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.